Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap-up for Friday, June 21st, 2013. And my big story, once again, is the Middle East, namely Syria. More than 93,000 Syrians have died in this bloody civil war. You know, the United States and everybody around the world is afraid of this spilling out to a wider civil war. And, that's why President Obama and President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, met this week. And how did the meeting go between the two? In a word, bad. Everybody wants to see the fighting stop. The U.S. and NATO and the European Union, they want to see the fighting stop, and they want to see Assad removed. That's the president of Syria. Russia says, no way. No, we don't do any deal that removes Assad. We'd like to have the fighting stop, but we're not going to remove Assad. So it's game on in the actual war zone. I mean, the U.S. was covertly arming the rebels. Now they are overtly arming the rebels, which is Al-Qaeda to a large part. Talk more about that in just a second. And then you have Hezbollah on the other side, another terror group. They're backed by Russia and Iran. Iran has troops there, so, hey, it's game on. And this is frightening for the region. It could draw in Israel, Lebanon, Jordan. In northern Jordan, the U.S. has doing war games and has 4,500 Marines there. They have F-16s. They have Patriot missile batteries. They have parts of the 1st Armored Division there. This is dicey. And they just had the two major leaders meet, and boom, nothing. Obama and Putin. That's sending out a terrible, powerful red flag signal. This is going to get much worse before it gets much better. This week, Fed Chief Ben Bernanke came out and he just hinted at slowing down the pace of all this money printing, this bond buying, where they're printing $85 billion a month to buy treasury bonds and mortgage-backed. So he just hinted at slowing it down by the end of the year this week, and boom, 570 points came out of the market in just a couple of days. And this shows you how really weak the stock market is and how much people are in denial that this is bad. I mean, in the 90s, we were talking about innovation. We were talking about initial public offerings, IPOs. We're talking about productivity gains. The national debt was low. We had, new companies coming up. We had low unemployment. None of that's going on today. We don't have any of that. And when we do have an IPO like Facebook, what a disaster that was. What a disaster. And this just shows you that the economy is not only just weak here in the U.S., but it's also weak in two of the biggest trading partners we have in Europe, China and in Europe. In China, they're getting ready for another mini Lehman Brothers. You know what happened when Lehman went under in 2008? We had a financial meltdown. Well, China has its banking problems going on now, and it's slowing down in its growth rate. They're having some slowdown in growth. Some pretty stiff slowdown in growth. In Europe, in many countries, particularly in the southern perimeter, they're in depression. They have huge double-digit 20, 30, 40, 50% unemployment rate in certain categories. It's unbelievable. And if things were going so well in Europe, would they be talking now openly about rules for bail-ins? That's how bad it's going over there. Remember when Cyprus first happened? Everybody came, it's a one-off event. It's just those Russians laundering money. Don't worry about Cyprus. This will never happen anywhere else. Wrong. Now they're openly talking about it. You're not hearing about this in the U.S., but they're talking about it this week, about rules for taking depositors' money, which is an unsecured creditor, bondholders' money, shareholders' money. They're going to take money from the people to make these guys, solvent. And I say, why not have a bankruptcy? If you like capitalism, then you believe in bankruptcy. That means the owners of these banks get tossed out on their ears, and that you keep all the bank, you keep the employees, and you write down the debt. But we're not doing any of that. We're going to have bail-ins. And according to Eric Sprott, who I interviewed this week, he runs Sprott Asset Management, $8 billion under management. He said, they're coming here. Bail-ins are coming to America. I would say within 2 or 3 weeks after the bail-ins en masse in Europe, if they start happening, you'll see them here. And try to get your money out of an insured account. Try to go get yourself $10,000, $15,000 out of an insured account. And you'll find out what capital controls mean, what that term means, capital controls. They won't let you have your money. That's what they did in Cyprus. Big news in the NSA, they had their say. Edward Snowden came out and revealed this giant, intelligence bonanza, this giant intelligence data collection network, and the NSA says, well, we have to have this. Our surveillance helped foil 50 terror plots. Now, this is a good thing. We have to have it, even though they are surveilling, honest Americans that don't have anything to do with terror. And when they gave details, when they were asked to give details of these terror plots that were foiled, like one of them was at the New York Stock Exchange, well, they can't national security. So let me get this straight. The people who had a secret, massive data collection scheme here in America, and it's still going on, and you want to justify it's still going on, we can't give you any details. You'll just have to trust us. Okay, I just have to trust you. Well, that brings me to my last and closing thoughts. So here we have this big data collection apparatus in the NSA. They're surveilling all emails and phone calls and metadata, and it can track you anywhere, going anywhere. They're hacking China, according to Snowden. They're gathering data, globally, not just in the U.S. And so this is all to fight terrorism, right? So what do we announce this week? Are you seeing this? U.S. Taliban to start talks in Afghanistan. The U.S. and Taliban are going to start talks now. These are the guys that hatched the World Trade Center plan that dropped the buildings in New York in 2001 and killed 3,000 Americans, right? Isn't that right? That's what they say. It's the story. And they're going to now negotiate with the Taliban. The Taliban are also the guys that shoot little girls in the head who speak out, that want to be educated, want to get an education, and they poison little girls who want to go to school. That's the same people, and we've decided it's a good idea to negotiate with them. And also in terms of other terror groups, and this data collection is all about terrorism, right? So how can you please tell me, and I've asked this before, how is it that we, kill terrorists in Yemen with missile strikes, Al-Qaeda, and then we arm them in Libya, and we are now arming them in Syria? This is Al-Qaeda. And Al-Qaeda is fighting another terrorist group backed by Iran and Russia, Hezbollah. And just this week it was announced that Deloitte Financial Advisory Services, that's a subsidiary of the consultants Deloitte and Touche, they just announced this week that they're going to be fined for helping a big European bank, Standard Chartered, hide money laundering for Iran. Hide money laundering for Iran. Deloitte Financial Advisory Services, they're going to be fined, and they're going to get a 1-year suspension from the financial services industry. Iran funds Hezbollah, a terror group. Iran is on the State Department's countries listed as a terrorist country. Now, isn't that helping the terrorists? Isn't that treasonous? And nobody goes to jail. They just pay a fine and get suspended from doing business with the bank that was laundering money for terrorists, and they were consulting to help them hide laundering money for terrorists from U.S. authorities. Nobody goes to jail, just like HSBC laundered money for Mexican drug cartels and Colombian drug cartels and countries on the terror watch list like Iran, and nobody goes to jail. And we have Edward Snowden, who members of Congress and other people say, oh, he's helping terrorists. He should be brought to justice. He should be killed, or he should be tried. That he should be, brought to the United States. Some people want to, disappear him. And yet these banks basically help terrorists and drug cartels, and they're just fine. Could somebody please help me with the giant, massive disconnect here? Because I don't get it. That's the way I see it. I'm Greg Hunter. Thank you for supporting USA Watchdog, and thank you very much for using the donations button. It helps out. Have a nice weekend.